It's Monday, January 12th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, we are talking to a couple of folks behind pictures you see online and in print. Photojournalists on what it means to bear witness to history unfolding and what it takes to get the perfect shot. I've been thinking about this show for a little bit now, and just with all of the news that kind of feels like that's coming at us like a fire hose at times, I think I've been thinking about the people who do the news gathering, the telling of stories, and even though we're in this TikTok world of ours, I've been thinking a lot about photography and pictures. So I got in touch with a couple of, I'll say experienced guys. Is experience the word?
Yes.
Veteran
photojournalists. All right, so we've got Greg Locke here, 40 years of experience, and David Howell, former photojournalist, now advertising photographer. There we go. So for both of you, just give us a bigger introduction of like yourselves and the work you've done, and we'll kind of zip out from there of questions around what it means to bear witness, what it's been like over the years to cover photography, news photography, from wildfires to politics to war to everything, and also through the hour a bit on where we are now and artificial intelligence and what some of that might mean and how it might drive you bonkers and beyond. And folks, as you listen, we will open the phone lines in a little bit if you've got thoughts for us or comments. I will say, though, the text line is open right away, 709-327-8206, the signal at cbc.ca. Well, let's start with the origin stories then. Greg, you first. Like you've been at it for a bit. Tell us about how you got into it.
I started off here at the Muse in the old Newfoundland Herald, then started working for United Press, moved to Toronto Sun, and then freelancing for the Globe and Mail there. And eventually I kind of got daily news speed, didn't interest me, so I moved to magazines. So I started working for Maclean's, Time, Newsweek, Business Week, and covered everything from crime to politics to business to wars. I was in Bosnia, Rwanda, Congo, Haiti, South Sudan. So it's been, I refer to the 90s as my lost year because I spent most of the 90s on the road overseas, pretty much exclusively.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're still doing work. I mean, who have you been filing for recently?
I freelance now for contributing photographer to Reuters, Thomson Reuters, and the Globe and Mail regularly. And this year has been crazy with the election, the wildfires, the trade wars, some feature stories. I spent 6 months working on the whole Torbay water, toxic water story for the Globe and Mail, which had, they ran that huge across a couple of pages in their print edition.
Yeah. So no shortage of work.
No, there's no shortage of work. I can't even retire.
Dave, what about yourself?
Well, I was a wannabe photographer for most of my teen years, and then sort of was unemployed for years, dreaming about being a photojournalist, and then I got a couple of very lucky breaks. Went to what I call snapper school in the UK, where they train you to be a press photographer. And again, I jumped straight into the deep end. I think my first actually published picture was in The Guardian. Right. And then I never worked for them again for the next 25 years. The day rates were too low. It was that bad. Yeah. But then I ended up getting a job, again, very lucky. I got a job at a very famous British agency in the UK. Spent sort of the first 5 years there. It's British media, so it's a little bit more robust, perhaps, than all the stories you hear are all true. So I spent the first couple of years chasing after Charles and Camilla and Hugh Grant and Liz Hurley and all that stuff, and also doing sort of daily news. There was always daily news and always portraits and stuff. And then I got another lucky break. It seems to be an awful lot of lucky breaks. And I got a job in New York, which was meant to be a year. Turned out to be I ended up being freelance, and I was there for 15 years. And then we bought a house here in Newfoundland years ago, and I'd been 20 years on the business. As Greg said, you're on the road constantly. I was doing 100,000 miles a year. But the States was amazing. I did a lot of American politics, presidential campaigns, that sort of stuff, a lot of travel. And then I quit out of it and came here and became an advertising photographer.
Yeah, because I run into you from time to time through that kind of a thing,
Yeah,
right?
and I still do the occasional news. I mean, you know, when Carney came to town, I was standing next to Greg. It was great fun. It was just like the old days.
Got a little pushy.
Yeah,
Elbows
the
up.
elbows came out, yeah.
Speaking of elbows up,
yeah.
right? What does it mean for each of you when I say to bear witness? Because as a photojournalist, you're the eyes for all these other folks around the world, or for a readership of a moment, and you're there for it. Like, what are your thoughts on just that part of what you've done over the years?
The whole concept of bearing witness is to literally go out and witness something with your own eyes and bring it back to show other people. And I always joke with the reporters that you can sit in a bar at the hotel, but I actually had to be there to take the photo. And
It's actually
a subtle
very
dig.
true.
But I think it's important. Different cultures have different ways of looking at this. The Europeans are really big on it. That their readers, they're interested in the world, and journalists can take it upon themselves to go out and to find those stories in the world and bring back and tell someone who's not there. And that's the concept of bearing witness. As much as we love our jobs and as much as of an adrenaline rush as it can be, that's why we do it. We go out. It's to bear witness, and you'll hear the same thing. People who work with international aid agencies will say much the same thing. And the whole concept goes way back in photojournalism to Lewis Hine at the turn of the century. He was a sociologist, and he got a camera and learned how to use it very well, and photographed children in the linen mills and the cotton mills and steel mills. And his work led to the first child labor laws in the USA in the 1930s.
He also did. It's the one the metal beam one with the workers on it, right?
That wasn't Hines.
Oh, that wasn't
No.
Hines? I thought that was him.
No.
Because I was looking up some stuff on him before today, and because it was the same type of black and white era, and it was like you're talking these kids, the labor conditions, but they're so striking.
Yeah, they are stunning photos. The quality, the subtlety, and especially there's one that gets used with Hine a lot, and it's a picture of a girl, 10, 12 max, in a linen mill in a dirty old dress with, in these working barefoot in these linen mills on looms, and it's. And people were shocked by that. That's why it led to changes in labor laws, because photography then was not as ubiquitous as it is now. It's just everywhere. There, it was when someone showed you pictures of something like that. It was people believed it. It's like that's real, and it had a big impact on people.
Dave, what about yourself? Just the bearing witness side of it.
Well, I always think there's the ability to have a front row seat to history. That's what I love about it. You're actually there. You're. I know it's sort of. Greg is always is more of a traditional than me. I'm sort of I've always enjoyed the thrill of looking back and seeing events, and I was there. And I witnessed it firsthand. And it's like, but the interesting thing about photography is, and especially now in this era of TikTok and Reels and all this, that, is that the power of the still image still resonates. You can't beat it, and it's you can have doesn't matter how many great bits of video, that one picture, and the great thing is and Greg will agree with me on this, is that you have. One of the abilities of a good photojournalist is to be able to encompass the whole story in one picture. Yeah. And that's what we're looking for, is to how do you tell this one story that has tentacles all over the place with one picture, and to make that recently a friend of mine, Adam Gray in New York, who's a phenomenal young photojournalist, actually worked at the same agency I did, 20 years later. He's killing it in New York. He got the shots of Maduro, what's he called, the Venezuelan president? Maduro getting off the helicopter on the on the dock.
Wow,
all of those.
Yeah, and that's been memeified 1,000 million times.
And he also he was there with on January the 6th, and he was there when the woman was trying to get through, and was shot dead, and he was right there. I mean, he's Kahuni's the size of whatever. And he's got that thirst for it to tell the story. And again, when you see these pictures, you think, okay, photojournalism's not dead.
No,
it's very much alive, and I think that's Because again, those just 2 or 3 pictures around the world. We all know what we're talking about, and I hope the listeners know what we're talking about too, because they will have seen it.
Well, I find the interesting bit when it comes to, photojournalism or the wire services and all of this stuff. Without them, no one has anything to talk about because this is where they get their information still. So all the influencers, they'll be talking about those photos. They'll be talking and there'll be the photo behind them as they talk and whatever else. But the information comes from the people, the boots on the ground journalists who are getting those stories still today, which is super important, right? Yeah. What's the range of framing stuff up? So you talked about the PM in town, right? So Carney's coming, it's a political event. What are you thinking about for getting a picture there compared to, for instance, like Greg, your water bomber shot pictures from the summer, or some of the war stuff, the things you've done, Dave? How do you kind of approach getting this shot?
The political stuff these days is so controlled, I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's like you show up, you snap the same shot every time. You hope that something unique will happen. You still, that's like a dance. It's like you go in, you know the song, you dance to the song, and hopefully you get next to the person that you want to photograph close enough, or you get in a position so that you can make an interesting photo for the viewer. And that's it. I'm not doing this for myself, really. I'm not doing it to win awards. I'm here to tell a story. But that story is highly scripted, and you don't have a whole lot of other things to do.
What changed with that, by the way? Because you said now it's highly controlled.
Oh, it's changed. Well, I was looking back on some pictures when Mulrooney died, and I was working in Ottawa for those 2 years that Mulrooney was there. And all those pictures, I'm standing this close to Mulrooney, less than 2 feet away. I'm shooting with a wide-angle lens. There's no cops in my way. There's no little. It's not even the cops. It's these little political assistants that are pushing you around to try to get you out of the way, right? Yeah. And different parties, of course, are worse at it than others. It was different. It's like you were in that scene. And now times change, security, message control, there's a whole bunch of factors. But you just do it. It's a standard shot. You got to cover it. Whenever the PM's there, someone has to be there with it, from our agency.
And there's also the just in case thing, right? Because you have to cover it. The PM's in town, but you never know.
Yeah. Because, everything from a crab fisherman protest to somebody throwing something or attacking somebody. Yeah. You have to be there, and that was always the rules with the wire services. If you just have to be there, even if you don't take a picture, and nothing happens, is really boring, and you walk away with nothing. You still have to be there because that is the event. As opposed to what I really enjoy is going. There's a forest fire. You go out in the day. You do not know where you're going. You don't know what you're going to get. You have to hunt it down, find your angles, and find the people to talk to and photograph.
The water bomber drops water on a wildfire near Paddy's Pond, right? I think was it in the Globe? Or,
it was for the Globe. I was on assignment for the Globe.
That was actually the shot of the year.
Is it?
Yeah, it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Well, when I saw it, all right, so we were here, everyone's covering the wildfires, right? I was doing shows on it, and all of these images coming in, and when I saw this still photo, I was just like, wow. And it's like you talk about telling the story, and it is so. I've got it here in front of me. I mean, you see the tree line, you see smoke coming up, just billowing out from white to black. You can see flames. There's a bit of a transmission line over to the left, and above this is this water bomber kind of tilted at a 45, and the load out behind it of water coming down on the fire, and it is the shot. Where were you for that one? Is that?
It's that's one of those situations where. Wow, it all came together just like I had planned it in my head. It's funny, we all know after a certain time we've covered so many events that on the way to an event or you're thinking in your head, what kind of shot do you want to make? What will the ideal shot be? What will be that shot with all the elements, like Dave says, in one photo? And I'm going, wow, it would be great if I get a shot with the smoke and the fire and the water bomber and the power lines some things are just serendipitous, and I know.
I was going to say there is a big element of luck that the light is perfect in that shot.
All of it has to work, right?
It all
at the
has
same
to
time.
Work. Yeah. And I know that area well because I used to be there as a kid. But I went to the first spot that I went because earlier the day before I was out in up on the top of Galway, and I was watching it there, the fire start, and I went there first. But that angle, I couldn't see the water bombers because they were dropping behind the column of smoke.
Oh, yeah.
So I ended up going down. I can't name it, the road that goes down to CBS Manuals, and I know the trails, and there's just dumb luck, right? I know the geography. I know, and I'm going along, and I'm driving along. I said, that's it. So I know there's a trail here. So I go up behind Paddy's, up behind.
Yeah, there's
Pond.
Top Fowler's Road.
Yeah.
There's a pole on there because the folks used to pick blueberries. But it's that area.
It's that, yeah.
I know where you're talking
So
about.
I just took the car and I drove up this trail up to this ridge, and I just said, well, this is it. And there was a couple of guys there who had houses on Paddy's Pond. Were sitting watching it too. And I just sat there and I set up, and it was noonish, I guess. And you just stay till you know you got the shot.
Yeah.
I shot. That's cool. And I'm looking at my watch because it used to be deadlines were at 4 and 5 o'clock to make the newspapers the next day, and now the deadlines are now.
Yeah.
And once I had the shot, I just went back, sat in the car, fired up the laptop, and sent it
in.
off to the Globe.
Because it has to get
That
in.
actually makes an interesting point about digital cameras, is that when we switched from film to digital,
Yeah.
we all thought that this is great. We don't have to develop film. We get an extra hour. Of course, how naive and
Now,
stupid of
right
me was
now.
it, and we now get an hour less. Is
Yeah.
what we actually get.
Yeah.
Because they know you can send it to them now. They want it.
Yeah,
now.
we know you have it.
Yeah.
How many, roughly, like how many pictures are, at something like that, how many pictures are you taking?
Oh, it depends how well it goes. It's one of those things. It never fails. It's either the first picture or the last picture. So you either get it in the first frame and you're done, and you go, I can't do any better than that, or you spend an hour there and shoot thousands of pictures. But in the case again, it was just pure serendipity, knowing where I wanted to be, knowing the shot that I wanted. That I got it in. I was there in less than 15 minutes to get that. Wow. Plus, I shot that was, I think, the best shot. But there's a dozen other shots from that are actually equally as good.
Wow. So, Dave, you like portrait photography too, right?
I do.
Yeah. Why?
If I was being brutally honest, I'm good at it.
Go on.
You know what? It's one of the things about the news business which I loved is, and it's funny enough, it's one of the things I love about Newfoundland is I'm a nosy Parker.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in people's stories, and not just for the sake of, who might you be and all the rest of that. I actually am interested, and I've always been interested in people's stories, and I think that's one of the reasons why it got me into photojournalism in the first place. And it's funny because it's like I said, the Brits is this sort of really. There's a very wide range of quote unquote photojournalism. It's like I was just, the idea that you had to be there back in when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. He went on holiday to Barbados, sorry. And I was dispatched to Barbados and ended up being there for 27 days.
Yes.
Just to watch him. Now, great thing is I spent my teen years in Barbados. My dad worked there. And so I know it really well.
Yeah.
And so, but the interesting thing was, you're there, you weren't meant to be seen. There was this thing where it was, you were basically black ops, there was denial. That you couldn't say who you were working for if you were asked and this sort of thing. Because they'd all asked, this is back in the good old days, they'd said, we don't want anybody there photographing us. We're on holiday. And of course, it's like, you really can't answer. You're the prime minister of a major economy here. But again, it's like, let's just see what happens. We're just going to watch. And we ended up getting this, the journalist I was working with, who's unfortunately died a few years ago, a guy called Mike McDonough, this absolute legend of British journalism. He was he's the guy that gave the Great Train Robbery the name, the Great Train Robbery. He was there. And in it, they had a car which had a radio telephone in it. And he was, he'd put me through to the news desk, that sort of thing. And he was talking to a local fisherman. So he'd go for a morning walk. And he realized, and the local fisherman said, "Oh, you know that Tony Blair is using Lord Bamford's estate as a beach house." Now, Lord Bamford, if you're British politics, so Tony Blair was Labour. Lord Bamford was the biggest donator to the Tory party.
Right.
So it's like, okay, this could be going somewhere. And I remember having breakfast at the hotel, and you always have a camera on you. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have a camera on the floor down here. It's like it's more of it's a safety blanket for me. I feel like I should have
Comforter.
And I remember sitting there, and I noticed this boat go by, and it was Bamford's boat. It was a speedboat, and it had number 34 on it. It's funny how you remember these things. So, and I was sitting under the breakfast table was a 600 mil, and I just whipped it out and just dropped a couple of frames, just because you drop a couple of frames, and that ended up being the shot. Because they're in that boat.
Yeah.
With here we have proof of it, that this, that, and the other, and it ended up being a cartoon in the Guardian, where I was some filthy paparazzi basically. And it was but the funny thing is, but you have to be there. You have to be there to see just what happens if, something did happen there. I mean, obviously, the story we got ended up not being quite what they wanted. But again, going back to what Greg said, it's interesting. When I was in New York, I was sent up to Canada to do the election campaign up here, and I was sent to, I think it was Scarborough, where Stephen Harper was giving a thing. And obviously, British newspaper, we're all based in New York. We come up to there, and it was like, I'm going to start, I can feel the anger boiling up in me already. It's like, it's because I know that Greg had a similar run-in in Petty Harbour. It's funny that, depending on which party, you can have an adversarial go with the press. And Harper's crowd were absolutely vile. They were like, and I ended up having, and I'm a chilled out guy until the switch flicks, and I ended up having a go at their press guy. It's like, what are you doing? We're trying to get a great shot here. This is like, it's a run of the mill thing. You're getting in the way. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so difficult? There's no reason for you to do this. And no wonder everybody hates you. It's like but it is. It's that thing. It's like, and I didn't understand how they couldn't play the game. I didn't understand that. It's like it was, and it's funny, but now it seems to 20 years later, it seems to be exactly the same thing.
And when we say play the game, what do we mean by that? So for people who haven't been out to press conference and stuff, what is the game of for folks that typically go along with how things are played and for everything else?
Well, you assume that if you're holding a public event, then you want media there to broadcast and spread your message. But that doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to, there's an animosity, and they seem to kind of want you there. They know they have to have you there, but they go out of their way to make it difficult for you to do your job. So maybe they just don't want the media coverage. Yeah. And that's exactly what seems to be happening these days.
So is that more now than it used to be?
I think so, yeah. And, they all do it to some extent. It's just the Liberals and the NDP are much nicer about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right.
But but it's funny because the Americans were always knew that the game, there's give and take. We want certain pictures, and they don't want you to take certain pictures. They don't want to take embarrassing pictures or anything like that. So the Americans are always great at stage management. Yeah. And you were never shut out. It was like, what can we do to help you
get the
picture that we want you to get? And then so there's always the game is a to and fro, is what it is.
I always found with Americans much speaking in broad strokes on it, used to be, I found in the past, really open to media and interviews and stuff and transparency. Now, questions and perhaps about how things might be and are changing now. But even the last time I was there, it was for the Trump inauguration, right? So the Japanese team flew over from Tokyo, went in, and we were doing interviews, and I was kind of surprised about just the openness, right? I was like, wow, this is like you can ask anyone anything, and they answer you, and they give you stuff. Yeah. And this was a bit of that American kind of the freedom of the press type thing.
They do, yeah. And I know Canadian reporters who call American sources, government sources, to get information about Canadian government because American freedom of information laws are much broader and open than Canadian laws.
Right.
It's wild.
It was one of the joys of working there.
Yeah.
Is that you can literally just turn up. We'd often have, for example, stories would be, let's find out what the average American thinks about the Iraq War. And so we'd always go to a state that the reporter had never been to so they could get the fridge magnet. I mean, all reporters are all the same. I say, look at you, Adam. But it's, and so we'd end up in somewhere like Nebraska, difficult, one that is typically difficult to get to. And we'd just drive around and there'd be cornfields. And we'd stop, and there'd be a farmer, and we'd get out, and hello, we're from the Daily Telegraph in London, and it's like we'd like to ask you, and they always said yes, and we're very honest and very open, and it was they were just as interested in us as we were them, and that was also an interesting eye opener.
Did you get? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I always remember Rick Mercer's piece from years ago talking to Americans, and his thing was. Can you tell me about this? And he said, well, I don't know anything about this, but I'll tell you what I think.
That was such a good bit that he used to do. I loved it.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the Vanity Fair MAGA picture? So
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah. So if you are not familiar, feel free to Google or internet search Vanity Fair J.D. Vance portrait, and it'll come up because it was Vance, Rubio, the chief of staff. What were your what did you think about it? And tell folks a bit about why they made such a splash.
You've been there, you do.
Okay. So, well, the interesting thing was the fallout was amazing because Chris Anderson, I think his name's Chris Anderson, he's been doing political portraits for 30 years. He works for Magnum. He's a well-known top pro in the States and has a very particular style, which is very sharp, not very, I wouldn't say flattering, but he has a very unique style. And why they wouldn't think these pictures were going to look exactly like they looked, I have no idea. But it's funny because I think everybody was shocked about it, that it could actually happen. That's the shocking bit, not that the level of control that the administration likes to exert on everybody, that they didn't seem to control. There was no pressure on this, and they ran it basically as is.
And what was it about the photos, do you think, that stood out for folks, for this particular photographer, for his style?
Well, as he said, he said, I don't, there was a quote he said on, sort of not defending it, but he said that, this is a political portrait. This isn't celebrity. It's not showbiz. Why would I be photoshopping, crow's feet out? Why would I be thinning their face or doing any of these things? This is not this is photojournalism. It's a glossy version of it, but it's still photojournalism. You have to tell the truth. It's the problem is the vast majority of pictures people see are manipulated in some way, even it's just gently. Lose 5 pounds and lose 10 years or something like that. But unless you're to see something this dark in a magazine is really rare these days. And kudos to them to running it, really, because I think it's funny because it also leads on to this bias that, as photojournalists, you're not meant to have any biases. Obviously, we have biases. It's anybody who says they don't are lying. But it's the fact that it strips away all the artifice of all the monkey business that they get on with, and this is who they are.
Somebody asked me about it and said, did he do that on purpose? Yeah. I said, he went into that situation, he photographed what he saw.
Yeah.
And if you think that there's an ugliness about it, then that's probably what he saw.
Yeah. And here's the CNN had a bit afterwards. It said, wide-eyed gazes and blotchy skin, plump lips and powdery makeup, extreme close-ups of President Trump's inner circle, including Caroline Leavitt, Susie Wiles, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio, have set the internet alight since leaving the bounds of Vanity Fair and its bombshell White House tell-all yesterday. Because there's interviews that went with this, and they were just such striking photos. And to your point, right?
Yeah.
Well, interestingly,
I think they like it.
I
think they like it.
I think they do. Yeah. Well, it's what's worse than not being talked about.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. A couple of days ago, Chris Anderson released an unseen picture of Epstein.
Right.
And that Epstein did he do it for Vanity Fair?
He did.
I can't remember.
He did it for a magazine.
Yes.
And it got killed, but Epstein wanted to buy all the photos.
Yes, and he bought all the pictures.
A check for some obscene amount of money. But
he'd on some old hard drive he was looking through, And lo and behold, there's the pictures.
Huh.
But it's the exact same style.
Exact same style. And this was taken probably 15 years ago at least, wasn't it? It was, which was funny because it leads me on to a little thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That's it.
Yeah. Many, many moons ago, I worked for the Mail on Sunday, which had a giant budget for investigations. And I found a picture recently that I'd taken of my wife, and it was, I said, do you remember where this was? It was on film, so I know it was pre-2001, right? So that's how my differentiator here. And she goes, oh, yeah, I still remember that. It was on like something like East 63rd in Manhattan. And I said, do you remember what we were doing? And she said, oh, no, we were sitting there watching a house. I said, yeah, I know. And it's like, it was Ghislaine Maxwell's house.
Huh.
Now,
Who's
back
in?
then,
Yeah.
this was all about Prince Andrew.
Yes.
So Andrew, why was he was already, like, you know, if you're in any British media, you don't have Andrew Mountbatten Windsor or whatever he's called now.
Yeah, no longer Prince Andrew.
No, and you know what? This should have happened decades ago. But he was always this sort of weird. It was always, you know, going on holiday to Saudi Arabian places. It's like, who's paying for this? Who's you know? There was always some whiff of something going on, and of course, Ghislaine Maxwell is obviously very famous in the UK because her father was Robert Maxwell, who was a press baron, and he had fallen off his boat and died. And then when it came to you know, opening up all the you know, the will and everything, realized that he had actually cleaned out the whole of the Mirror Group's pension fund, and that's how he paid for everything. So this is why she had to leave in London, because she was persona non grata, had to go to New York, and then that's when she had all the connections, but she didn't have any money, and that's where the connection with Epstein comes in.
And Maxwell currently serving 20 years in prison for helping financier Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse girls.
Yeah, and so there's this crazy thing of spending. Again, I never heard of Epstein at that point, but obviously he was involved. But you know, I can remember doing numerous stories where I'd have to go and basically pretend to have dinner in a restaurant next to Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, to see who he's having dinner with on all these investigations. Meanwhile, he has no idea who I am.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild, absolutely wild, and I really enjoyed that because that was. It was like, so I'm a remarkably anti-establishment, considering how establishment I am.
Well, because they're like, that's an interesting form of adrenaline too, I must imagine, right? That kind of thing compared to if you're doing the war photography, the wildfires, the this, the that, but like the
Yeah, it's funny
It's
because
still adrenaline.
It's because Greg has done way more of that than I have. I went
Yeah.
to Haiti in 2004 and to do what was meant to be a fairly puff piece feature about 200 years of independence, and turned into basically the worst 10 days of my life. It was like, it's, you know, as you know, an elevator, you know, straight to hell. It was absolutely hideous, and it's like, you know, Greg's done way more of that. I prefer the much more, you know, I like my hotels to be nice and warm and that sort of thing.
yeah.
What do you mean you haven't slept in a truck stop in Africa?
But it is funny though, because there's all of these things is it's funny when you get back to the portrait thing, is what I love about I ended up doing a lot of celebrity portraits, and what I love about that, it's the same adrenaline thing. We're all searching the same thing. Is that when you take a portrait of somebody who's famous, is you're not just taking a portrait of them. You're up against everybody else who's taken a portrait of them, because it's going to be published and everybody's going to see it, and they're going to be like, well, he's not as good as he thinks he is he? It's, and so you ending up having to have sort of, you know, it's an adrenaline rush that you have to be able to prove yourself again and again in a very, very short period of time.
It's your career can live and die on the photo you take that day. So that, you know, the pressure, the competition, and the adrenaline is always high.
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today we're talking about bearing witness. We've got two veteran photojournalists here, Dave Howells and Greg Locke, talking about everything from political photography to wildfires, war photography, taking portraits, you name it. The whole idea around the show is to talk about what one photo can do and can mean and how it can imprint from the person taking it, and then on like thousands and thousands of others over the years. You know, just think of those famous those photographs you've seen in the news over the years that have stayed with you. If you want to join the discussion, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You could have questions, or if you want to talk about a photo that really kind of you haven't been able to let go for whatever reason, you can text us 709-327-8206, the signal at cbc.ca. Which other photos for you guys? For me, when I was thinking of the show, like Tank Man stood out, right? And these all have the names are all similar, right? Because it's Tank Man, Napalm Girl,
It's the
Afghan
shorthand,
Girl, the
yeah.
McCurry photograph in the 80s. There's I can't remember. I saw the name, but so recently though, or more recently, with Syria, like the Alan Kurdi on the I think it's called Boy on Beach or something. But the young boy who was found dead on the beach, and that photograph that really kind of resonated and just captured that refugee migrant crisis from Syria. I think
There will always be that still image. Whatever it is in human psychology, still images burn in the brain. As you sit and watch it, it burns deeper and deeper and deeper, a way video never does. And, all those that you mentioned. For me, because I kind of came of age just as the Vietnam War was ending and El Salvador conflicts were kicking off. That's the photography and imagery that has influenced me the most. And Eddie Adams' photo of a Viet Cong soldier being executed in the street by a South.
I know the one you're talking about right away.
Right away.
Yeah.
That I've seen video of that, and it's totally unremarkable.
No,
Well, again,
it's
the
the
same.
still.
It's the same
There was a
thing.
BBC crew there with the Napalm Girl, and you see her running towards you, and it's just a bunch of kids, obviously, hideous, but it doesn't have anything of the immediacy and the power that the still picture does.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it's not that it's a particularly great picture. It's like but the bits in it make up. There's the brother crying his eyes out is perhaps more terrifying than the girl herself, if you know what I mean. And then there's because again there's a wider shot of that, and you see there's a photographer, a South Vietnamese military photographer, I think, rewinding his camera.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like so there's a bit of a crop of there, and it's like it's the wider frame is nowhere near as powerful as the slightly cropped frame, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's like I don't crop anything.
The wide view in photography and the wide view in life is always more banal than when you focus in on the crucial elements. The shot of the child on the beach. What's the element? There's a photo of a child dead in the surf and a guy with a checklist ticking it off.
Yeah.
Or making notes. That's again, if there's a wider image, I'm sure there's other things there, but those are the elements that matter. The rest, everything else doesn't matter. That's the elements, and that's how you make those photos.
This is one when we were for the anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing, and so like when I interview folks as well, I did some CBC stuff, but also just there with NHK again, and then this photo. So it's the boy at the crematory. So this is post bombing. After the Second World War, and it's a boy with his brother on his back, and it's this photo taken, and his sibling had died because of the bombing, and it's one of these things that just when you see it, and like if it was a film of someone walking, it would still be striking, but it's the still image that stays with you.
Yeah,
doesn't let you.
And
go.
interestingly, the most of the ones we've spoken about are black and white, which has another level depth to it.
Yeah.
That when you strip out the color is sort of distracting in some way. And I know that like Tank Man is actually in color.
Yeah.
But it's almost monochromatic, and it's just green, a few
concrete
bit of
and gray,
greens and a
yeah.
bit of grain. It was taken on some ridiculously long lens, and so it's a huge pull.
There's two photographers there.
Yeah.
There's who was that? Stuart Franklin and Jeff Weidman.
Yeah.
And they were in the same hotel. In different rooms, one balcony, I think just one behind and one up from
Oh
each
my
other.
gosh.
And so when you see that shot, you're not really sure which one you're seeing because there's only real subtle differences there. But
Then I remember that the Franklin got the fame for it.
yes,
And because he was with
Magnum.
something like that.
Yeah.
And again, part of this thing is that sometimes the best pictures are not the ones that get out. they're the ones that are on the wires.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like, only later on do you see different versions appearing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like I've sort of got known that my archive, whenever somebody dies, they always use my portrait of whoever the famous person dying was.
Right.
And it's like, so nobody, it's funny, I always joke that nobody wants to be photographed by me anymore because it's going to end up croaking it. And I think, oh, obviously, yes, I'm brilliant. But it's actually because all my archives were Getty images.
Yeah.
And so people go to Getty first for this stuff, and it's like, and it's all there.
Yeah.
So there may be better pictures out there, but you don't really ever see them.
Yeah.
No.
So when if I'm at an event, and here in Newfoundland, I'm usually the only one there, so it doesn't matter. But if I'm at an event like when they had the EU summit here, a political event, the EU people are in town, Trudeau was in town, I'm shooting that. And because I'm shooting for Reuters, that picture I can get out, 30 minutes later, and it can be picked up by Reuters subscribers anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And like when I scroll through, when I start looking for the codes that I put on the photos to see where it's used online, there's stuff, it's like the Dallas Morning News, Al Jazeera, BBC, U.S. News and World Report, some small town newspaper in the Midwest. And it's like, wow, that's what, because being in Newfoundland is like being a foreign correspondent because you never see your work. It goes out, you have no idea where it goes.
No.
And it's only when someone tells you, oh, I saw this, that picture made the front page of the newspaper in La Paz, Bolivia, you go, wow, the world kind of is really connected,
We had a text from Patty Barry. Great episode. So a couple questions here. Question for Howells or Locke. Best John Crosby story. Also a question regarding war assignments. Was there ever a moment you had great fear for your safety for either of you guys? So choose your own adventure. Do you want to talk about a Crosby story or safety?
I don't have a Crosby story.
Okay, so the funniest Crosby story I have is not actually mine. I was with Ray Fenley, who was another great Newfoundland photographer.
Yeah.
Was in an elevator. He was Crosby's photographer for a while when he was a cabinet minister, and they're in the elevator at the old Hotel Newfoundland, and Crosby says to Fenley, "Now, Mr. Fenley, can you do something about my double chins?" And Fenley fires back without hesitation, "I'm a photographer, sir, not a plastic surgeon."
That's really good. What about safety? Because you've been all over. When
Wow, safety. Adrenaline overrides safety concerns always.
Yeah.
I have a habit of researching in depth anywhere I'm going. Bosnia, Rwanda, even in, covering crime stories. I will research everything I can possibly know about the location, the combatants, the political aspect, the cultures, so that I really mitigate my risk. That being said, when you're in a taxi in Sarajevo after curfew and you're trying to get home and you don't know what that taxi driver's saying and he's pulling up to a checkpoint where there's, oil barrels and guys with guns, it's like you don't know which way this is going. So
No.
yeah.
But it is funny because I always, I did a lot of work on the Mexican American border, border patrol stuff. This is back going, again, a lot of this was on film. A lot of the early drug trade was in Mexico quite a bit. And at the time, you don't really notice it, if you know what I mean. I look back now and I think, what was I doing? Roaming around sort of, Nuevo Laredo at night with just a fixer trying to find somebody. It's like I think the sort of, with this sort of stuff is that, I was in Bosnia for a while, but I was with the British Army photographing them, so a level of safety there you would hope. But there was, certainly with the sort of the Mexico and the border stuff, is that there was always a danger of instant violence.
Yeah.
But you didn't, it's like, it would be unknown. You wouldn't know. It's like, because certainly I remember one of the stories I did there was, I photographed a guy called Omar something or other, and it was the most dangerous job in the world. He'd just become the police chief of Laredo.
Yeah.
There's a low life expectancy.
His predecessor had lasted 7 hours before he was gunned down.
Yeah.
And so the police station was surrounded by the army. And then to get in, I couldn't identify he had 2 childhood friends, his personal protection, and I couldn't identify them, so they had to have their heads sort of, chopped off, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they had, like full automatic weapons. He had a pistol on his desk that was cocked and ready to go, just in case. And so it's like, well, and you're looking around, surely it doesn't look that dangerous out there, what have you. And then I got them to take, not these guys, I got them to do I just wanted to get some shots of police in the back of a pickup. And they were so reticent in doing it. They did not want me to do it because literally the day before there had been a drive-by and gangs had shot at the police station and what have you. So anyway, so that night we went out, me and the fixer and the reporter went out to this Mexican restaurant. It was fantastic. I remember I had like mole chicken or something like that. And there was a battle of the mariachi bands, and there was nobody in there. It was just us. Nobody would go out to dinner because it was considered to be so dangerous. And the funny thing is like the next night there was the mayor and the deputy mayor went out, and 2 gunmen came in and shot them in exactly the same restaurant the next night.
Right. But
And I was like,
the night before, you're like, this mole is delicious.
this is actually fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's like, in the next night you have a shooting.
Huh.
It's
and
a
they're killed.
it's a weird combination of adrenaline, naivete, and arrogance to walk into a situation like that thinking nothing's going to happen to me.
Yeah. That's the other folks. It happens to the other people,
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, it's funny that I don't think it exists anymore, that certainly there was, you had a protection of being the press. That's
right.
And also, I hate to say it, being white was very much you were seen to be important.
Yep.
And you were treated very differently, and it was, and I think that's all gone. Certainly
It happened right around the time the Syrian civil war started.
Right.
There was a point where foreign journalists, again, were there. You wouldn't necessarily be a target. You might get injured if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But also, they were somebody a revolutionary could tell their story to, and it might get out to the world. Now we have the internet, and foreign correspondent, a photographer, is basically a cash machine. You can be kidnapped and $30,000 worth of gear stolen.
Right.
They don't care that you're a journalist. They don't care where you're from. You're just a cash machine now.
Wow.
And that's that change between my cohort and generation and Lindsay Adarios and Tim Hetherington and that crowd.
Right. As stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few minutes left. Today, with this AI world we're now kind of zooming into, because one thing before, there's been issues with photoshopping and stuff. Like I was reading up, it was a few years back, an AP journalist had his, like the photo was pulled from a Pulitzer nomination because it was edited, right?
Yeah, he had like a video
cameras,
camera in the foreground.
Great shot.
Yeah.
Even with the video camera, great shot, maybe not Pulitzer winning shot. And this was a thing. So this is photoshopping, fine. But today, like we have photo and video verification units around the world for different news organizations. What are your guys' thoughts on where things have kind of evolved and where we are with this?
I think we're toast. Already, I have, in recent years, I have had people say, what do you know? That's just your opinion. I said, not my opinion. I was there. I photographed it. What I'm showing you, actually, and they don't believe you. And they literally go, you're lying. You made that up. And I go, well, here it is.
Here it is.
So I'm not sure what the response to that is. Photoshop, from the Photoshop side, I know most of the news agencies now, Reuters certainly has it been AFP and AP, have image verification software that all the photographers use. Reuters goes even farther, that photographers, particularly the junior ones, are not allowed to do anything with that file. They can't crop it. They can't edit it anyway. It gets sent straight from your camera straight to an editing desk, and an editor does the basic corrections like lightening, darkening, color balance.
Right.
So it's very strict, but it still happens. Still there's photographers out there. I'm gonna Photoshop out that Coke can because I don't like it. Well, you just destroyed your career for that.
Well, exactly. That's the big thing is I always say, it's like, use trusted news sources. Like, you know, if you know, like, you know, like Reuters or Getty, I mean, you know, you have very strict guidelines that you have to adhere to if you know, you put stuff in there. But also, it's like nobody wants to have their career ended. And so you trust the photographers that you know, and you trust the news agencies you know, and you trust the big news outlets that you know. And it's like, and that's the only thing you can do is trust that there's a. I mean, the new cameras have a thing called content credentials, which puts in basically an unerasable chip into the you know, data into the picture, and it means that every time if it's been fiddled with, it will tell you this. So this is where we've had to get to, that the cameras themselves are saying this is an honest picture.
So for folks who, like, if you're a young person wanting to be a journalist and specifically thinking photojournalism today, like,
Wow.
what could... Yeah.
Well, when before the show,
First of all, good luck
before the
getting
show
in.
came on, Greg and I were waxing lyrical about the glory days, and remember this, and we did this, and there was no such thing as budgets, and we were just flying everywhere. And it was like, and not to sound like when we's, but it was the glory days, and I'm afraid it's gone. And it's you know, it was the most fun job in the world, and then when the money ran out, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I know. Well, yeah. What is the future? The Globe and Mail has, you know, they still have their print edition, but they have a whole different team that manages their website, and they're all young people, and they are doing a lot to cultivate younger voices, train young photojournalists, and they run workshops every year, and so they're actively trying to bring up and bring along young photojournalists to be the next generation. Like, I'm 65. How much longer am I going to do this? Who in Newfoundland?
Years.
I know. Like, who in Newfoundland? When I cast my eyes around, who in Newfoundland is going to take my job?
Well, I think also the job will change. Is that, you know, Greg and I were pure photojournalists, and now you have to be a multimedia specialist.
Yeah.
And that's the difference that changed, and the story. But the essential thing is there's still a role out there for, you know, the youngsters to tell stories. Everybody's interested in the story. That doesn't change. How it's told will change.
Yeah.
But the actual story itself. And you have to, you know, if you're interested in people and you're great at storytelling, and you're willing to work ungodly hours for no money, then you have a great future in front of you.
Yeah. What story, if you know, we could do the Wayback Machine type of a thing for your age, you know, like to get you back out into that travel time and everything. What story now do you think your younger self would like to be out kind of doing if you were back on the travel beat again?
Huh. That's interesting. I'd be back in Africa covering civil wars.
Yeah.
I think that's for no other reason than I have history and knowledge and education and background in it, so I understand it probably more than most people would. So I know how to do it. You know, it's a classic thing. It's like, I'll do that because I know how to do it.
Yeah.
I would do American politics again.
Yeah.
I know I keep telling my wife I wouldn't do it, but I, you know, like I said earlier on in the program, Adam Gray is basically, you know, doing probably one of the best, you know, a true photojournalism job, and one of the few that's actually doing it, and he's doing it superbly.
Yeah. Time, place. You're there for history, and it's photos that stay in like the collective. If there's any such thing as having a collective conscience anymore, or consciousness, some of these still make it through for people to kind of imprint on you.
It's there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for coming in and hanging out and talking about now, then, everything in between, how it's done. Like, I really appreciated this chat. So thanks.
Most
guys.
welcome. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks, that is it for today's show. If you got thoughts for us, the signal at cbc.ca. You can always call the signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. I will say, for those of you who are waiting for books, they're getting in the mail today or tomorrow. I just want to say that out loud because it has not fallen off my agenda. Tomorrow, let's go exploring flora, fauna, icebergs, no stone left unturned, an introduction to the island's life and landscape. The book, Field Guide to Newfoundland and Labrador, Island of Newfoundland edition. We're going to talk about pretty much everything that you can see in terms of wildlife and rocks and all that for Newfoundland. I'll ask when the Labrador edition's coming too. Cheers.